Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1027B, and today's date is July 20th, 2016, and the title of the episode is U.S. Government Central Bankers Have Lost the Narrative in the Middle East. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, in the Washington Post, I saw a very interesting article about a police chief, Vernon L. Riddick, Jr. He was giving a speech in a black neighborhood in a church, and he said something very interesting, that if an officer stops your car, if they ask to search your person or vehicle, if they demand entry into your home, comply, and then complain later to the department's Internal Affairs office. Well, what is he saying here? He's saying, give up your rights, let the police do whatever they want, and if you have a problem with it, complain later. Well, I'm sorry, this is not how it works. Now, he's trying to make it seem like everyone's working together, because he's saying, in the interest of cooperation, we should all work together and allow this to happen. No. You need a warrant to search. Otherwise, you're violating my Fourth Amendment. You're violating everyone's Fourth Amendment. You cannot search on a hunch of what you think. You need to have proof. You have to present it to a judge. You have to get a warrant that allows you to do this. Our founding fathers included this right in the Bill of Rights for a reason. Because it allows the people to be private, to protect them from unreasonable searches and seizures. The intent behind the amendment was to protect us from the violations of our privacy. But we see that the police, they don't care about that. They're trying to make it seem like, well, if you decide not to let us search, it seems like it's a provocation. No, we're just saying that we have the right to privacy and you need to follow the Bill of Rights. That's why you're in that position, to protect the rights, not to violate the rights. And we can see right now, this is the mindset that they're trying to use in America right now. It starts at a young age with Common Core. We see it on college campuses. We see that the police are trying to convince the people, and the government trying to convince the people, that we don't have these rights. Now, I'm not saying every police officer. I know many officers that do abide by the rights of the people, but there are some out there, especially the U.S. government, that would like to get rid of the rights of the people, to make it easier for them to control the population. Now, out in France, we see the state of emergency was extended not for 3 months, but for 6 months. Now, we have to go back here, because during the Nice attack, during July 26, Hollande was going to say the state of emergency was going to be lifted. And then they decided, after this terrorist attack, which turns out to be not a terrorist attack, he has no ties to terrorism whatsoever, the lawmakers in France said, we need the state of emergency to keep the public safe, because there might be further attacks. Now, let's just understand this for a second, because the state of emergency was in effect during this time period. So, who did it protect? If we believe the official story, who did it protect? It protected no one. Proof that what the government in France is saying is a lie. Now, out in Ukraine, there's some disturbing news on the front line. It looks like Kiev has completely gone on the offensive against the Donbass regions. Now, fighting started after midnight. It is increasing right now, and it's intensifying. We'll have to see where this goes, but it looks like they're maybe making a move at this point in time. And we'll have to follow this situation very closely. Now, out in Turkey, we see something very interesting. Yesterday I mentioned Wikileaks. They were getting cyber attacked. They were trying to release all these different documents, emails about the coup. And it came out to about hundreds of thousands of documents that is related to the failed military coup in Turkey. And it looks like someone was trying to stop them yesterday with cyber attacks. And that is still going on. They've released some of the documents. But very interestingly, Turkey has taken the action to block access to Wikileaks. Now, the action was undertaken by Turkey's internet watchdog, and they said, okay, we're looking at this, and of course the watchdog is coming from Erdogan's ruling AK party, and they called the move an administrative measure, which really means blocking access to the website. So the question is, why would Turkey want to block the documents that talk about the coup? Why are they being cyber attacked to try to knock down their entire system? This does not look good for Erdogan right now. Now, Erdogan went ahead and he is closing 24 radio and TV stations. He's saying that they have ties to Gulen, the Gulen movement he's calling it, and he's revoking the licenses. So it looks like there'll be no broadcasting out of these areas. Now, everything that's coming up right now seems to go right back to Gulen. And he's using Gulen for everything that is happening in the country. And he is purging many, many individuals in the country. But during this period, we see that Turkey is continually fighting the PKK, and the war on the PKK is continuing through the drama of the coup. They have not stopped. Now, very interestingly, with this coup, is that the two Turkish pilots who shot down the Russian Su-24, we know they were arrested. They were taken into custody. Now, of course, Erdogan did nothing before this time period. Actually, he was using the excuse that Russian planes flew into his country. They had the right to shoot it down. He didn't blame the pilots at that time, and of course the pilots were taking orders. But now he's using the coup to say that those pilots were part of the Gulen movement. So what we're seeing right now, and yesterday I mentioned many different theories, and the two theories that seem the most plausible are that Turkey is moving closer to Russia, but we're waiting for proof on that one. And the other theory is that Turkey and the United States plan this so Turkey can receive, so Erdogan can receive more power, change the constitution. So what we're seeing right now is that Erdogan is continually purging soldiers, police, judges, civil servants, and it's over 50,000 individuals right now. And it looks like they might announce emergency measures to shore up stability and prevent damage to the economy. And we can see right now is that Erdogan is removing the old armed forces and building new forces right now that will be loyal to him. Now, the old forces, he's saying they are Gulen supporters. And the new forces will not be Gulen supporters. They'll be loyal to Erdogan. And we'll have to see how this plays out. Now, let's take a look at what Erdogan is doing. Now, we're looking for actions of what Erdogan is going to do. And he talks a lot, and we know most of the things that come out of his mouth are lies. But one thing that came up during this coup is that Turkey made a call to Iran, spoke with Hassan Rouhani, Erdogan's counterpart, and they had a telephone conversation. And the conversation, which is being reported, went something like, "Today, we are determined more than ever before to contribute to the solution of regional problems hand in hand with Iran and Russia in cooperation with them." And this is supposedly quoted from Erdogan. Now, that is a sign that maybe Erdogan is cozying up to Iran and Russia. Now, these are just words on a phone call. Is this proof? Is this an action that Erdogan has done yet? No, not yet. We need to wait a little bit longer, because we see politicians today, dictators, they say a lot of things, but what they actually do doesn't always follow what they say. Now, the White House is out there, and they refuse to criticize Turkey's post-coup purge, saying that this is an extraordinary situation. They also are backtracking on what John Kerry said, warning that Turkey is going to be removed from NATO, insisting that the U.S. strongly values Turkey as a NATO member, and is saying that Secretary of State John Kerry didn't really mean it in that way. So it looks like the White House is backtracking, trying to make nice with Turkey. And we can see right now is that we need to see the actions of Erdogan and in which direction he goes. Because we have these two running theories at this point. We're looking at the indicators, and we have this one phone call. But we need to see Erdogan take the next step. We know he's visiting with Putin in August. We understand he's purging a lot of forces in his country. And if he is moving towards Russia, Iran, we would then see him remove some diplomats in Turkey, because if he's saying that the U.S. is responsible for all this, then he would go ahead and start saying, okay, you are responsible. We need to start removing some of your officials in our country. That hasn't happened yet. So far, we're still working with these two theories right now. And we can see that the U.S. and NATO and Erdogan have worked very, very closely together. Erdogan has done the bidding for the U.S. and NATO. And when we look at this, we have to think to ourselves, Putin has been destroying the Islamic State. The Islamic State is on the run. They're losing their hold in Iraq. They're losing their hold in Syria. Erdogan was outed by Putin, saying that he was part of this oil covert operation with the Islamic State. He also pointed out, Putin pointed out that he also housed, funded, allowed the Islamic State to pass in and out of Turkey. Is the U.S. and Turkey cleaning up everything that has to do with the Islamic State right now? Everything that has been going on, are they completely cleaning house? Because they realize their proxy army is done. There's nothing left here. They can't really be used the way they were being used before. And all ties to the U.S., all ties to Turkey, all ties to the coalition forces, are they cleaning up? Because we see special op teams in Syria raiding different areas, collecting the hard drives, collecting the documentation. We see Turkey now removing all those individuals that had to do with everything that was been going on. So we might see a major cleanup right now of what has been happening. Now, France, they have confirmed that they do have troops in Libya. They are working with the unity government, We see 3 soldiers were killed on intel missions, and we know that the coalition partners, they all have troops in Libya supporting the unity government. Again, this government was not elected by the people. We also see the U.S., as they're bombing the Islamic State, has hit more civilians. And when I say the Islamic State, I say that in quotes, air quotes. At least 85 civilians were killed on Tuesday in airstrikes by the U.S.-led coalition planes. And we can see that the U.S. is continually hitting civilians. Of course, going back in time, they were blaming it all on Russia. Now we're finding out that the U.S. hits a lot of civilians, a lot of children, just like Saudi Arabia has been doing in Yemen. Now, Kerry is out there, and he is saying that Russia and the United States, they have concrete steps to be taken in Syria, with an eye toward ending the civil war and fighting against both the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and al-Nusra. Now, Kerry gave no indication what this would entail, but remember, he's been speaking to Lavrov. He's been calling back and forth, trying to make these deals. And we see right now that Kerry also followed up by saying that Russia needs to use its influence to force the Syrian government to stop all attacks on rebel factions. Now, in recent weeks, virtually all the fighting has been against the Nusra Front, and we know the moderate rebels are intertwined with al-Nusra, al-Qaeda. And we have to raise this question about what the U.S. has in mind. Since the U.S. has made a big deal about the new deal with Russia being about growing concerns about Nusra, and yet they followed it immediately up with another effort to get the heat off of Nusra. So what is the U.S. really doing here? Well, they're backed in a corner right now. It's either they make peace with Russia or they do something else. Now, their goal is always the same. Their tactics might change. They might use the illusion of peace. We've seen this before, back in 2013. Oh, we just want Assad to get rid of his chemical weapons. That would be fine. That's all we need. But that's not the truth, because they came up with other plans. They brought in the Islamic State. And we see right now, this seems like it's the same exact thing, because if they make peace in Syria and Assad stays in power, the petrodollar crumbles. They will lose the entire Middle East. The narrative that they've been using in Syria, in the Middle East, is falling apart. We can see right now they need to do something else, and something very drastic. Because their goal, their entire plan, revolves around getting all the Middle Eastern states, plus Syria and Iran, and placing all their natural resources on the petrodollar. If they lose the Middle East, the petrodollar is doomed. The entire system just crashes. And they're trying to continually prop this up. This is their agenda. This is their goal. This is what they think is going to work. I mean, it will work in the short run, but in the long run, the system's going to crash. Now, France is joining up with the United States. They're preparing coordinated attacks against the Islamic State in Iraq. And we know that most likely it's going after those individuals that want the puppet government gone. Because the Islamic State right now only has 10% of the territory in Iraq. And the Iraqi forces are doing a very good job pushing them back. So the U.S. is running into a major problem. The people of each one of these countries are fighting back. They're losing the narrative. The people want the U.S. government out. They want their own elected governments. They want freedom and democracy. The freedom to choose who their leaders are going to be. They don't want the U.S. to choose for them. And there's a major problem with the moderate rebels, who are really terrorists. There are reports that the moderate rebels beheaded a Palestinian boy. Now, the U.S. is caught on this one, And they're saying that there's going to be consequences if we can prove this. Now, of course, reporters ask, what are the consequences going to be? Well, they can't come up with any. Toner refused to provide any information about what the consequences would be. But we can see these moderate rebels, for them to behead a boy shows us that they are terrorists. These are the individuals they want to put into power in Syria. These are the people saying Assad is a dictator. Assad kills individuals. But we've been showing proof over and over and over that it's the moderate rebels, which are terrorists. It's Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, the Islamic State, using sarin gas, beheading individuals, keeping the people in fear, terrorizing towns and cities, destroying artifacts. And this is all controlled by the United States government, central bankers, and the coalition forces. So right now the U.S. is backed in a corner. We're waiting for their next move. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.